So we're going to move on now to percent change. This is on the third page. And in order to help you understand percent change, I'm going to use a real world situation. When talking about percent change, the most popular real world situation is looking at the stock market. If you've ever looked up data regarding stock values, you might notice that one of the pieces of data that's given to you is percent change. So I'm going to show you how these numbers are calculated. This is actual data that I looked up. I found this on Yahoo Finance, but this information is not current because I found this a couple of days before the last time we saw each other. So about 2 weeks ago is when I pulled up this data. So the image below shows recent stock market changes of 8 corporations. What we're seeing was the current price, stock price of each corporation. We're seeing the most recent change, and we're seeing these changes expressed as percent change. So I'm going to show you how percent change is calculated. Let's look at Apple stock. So on the day that I collected this information, Apple's stock value was $302.74. That was the value for one stock within the Apple Corporation. This is showing me that the stock experienced an increase of $13.42. So I can use this to determine what was the stock value before it looked like this. I'm going to work backwards. If I'm going to work backwards, I'm going to deduct this. I'm going to deduct that from $302.74. Now show me what the price was before the change. So when you use your calculator, $289.32. So before this day, Apple's stock value was $289.32. This is showing me that Apple experienced a $13.42 increase, leading to this new value of $302.74. Now, let's talk about how the percent change was calculated. First of all, one thing you have to keep in mind is since we're calculating a percentage, that means we need to divide two numbers. Because remember where a percentage comes from. A percentage comes from a decimal, and a decimal comes from a fraction. And a fraction is essentially division between two numbers. So there's two values that were being divided. So you have to think about what are the two important values here. One important value is the change, because we're literally calculating percent change. So the change is definitely going to be an important factor. My change here is $13.42. What I have to do is I have to compare the change to the original. Because remember, I want to determine by how much did the stock increase or decrease compared to the original. This is the original because this is what experienced the change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide the change by the original. That will tell you the percent change. So let's test it out. If I divide the change by the original using my calculator, I get a decimal. So I'm not going to use the entire decimal. I'm going to use the first 5 digits. So 0.04638. 0.04638. Remember, to convert into percent form, we multiply by 100. So if you were to multiply this by 100, sorry, That's 4.638%. 4.638%. Now, let's say I want to round to the nearest hundredth, meaning I only want 2 digits after the decimal. That means I have to determine if I'm going to keep this 3 the way it is or if I'm going to round it up. Because there's an 8 next to it, I'm going to round it up to a 4. So it'll say 4.64%. That's where this number came from. This number basically is saying that Apple stock increased by 4.64%. And the way you can determine a percent increase or decrease is by comparing the change to the original value. So let's test it out again using different numbers. This time, let's look at NIO Limited. That's a different corporation. So NIO actually experienced a decrease in its value. Its value went down by 19 cents. So this was its current value. But to get to this current value, there was a 19-cent decrease. So I'm going to work backwards. I'm going to add on 19 cents to this value to determine what the value looks like before it experienced this change. So right now, the value of the stock is $3.87. I'm going to add on 19 cents to determine what the value was before this change. It's $4.06. So NIO's stock value before was $4.06. But because the stock decreased by 19 cents, now the current stock value is $3.87. So let's look at how the percent change was calculated. Again, you have to compare the change to the original. So there was a 19-cent change. I'm going to compare this to the original, to what the number looked like before this change occurred. The original was $4.06. If you try dividing these numbers, that will give you the percent change. So 19 cents divided by $4.06. Again, I'm just going to use the first 5 digits. So 0.04679. 0.04679. Multiply by 100 to convert it to percent form. When you multiply by 100, you get 4.679%. If I were to round to nearest hundredth, this 7 is going to go up to an 8 because there's a 9 next to it. So it'll say 4.68%. That's where this came from. This is showing there was a 4.68% decrease in this corporation's stock value. And the way we determine that is by comparing the change that happened to the value before that change, to the original value. So change compared to original. So that's what you have to keep in mind whenever calculating percent change. So let's look at a more in-depth version of the formula. So remember the formula was change divided by original. This is my percent change formula. So percent change compares old values to new values using percentages. And this is a percent change formula, and this is what you should use when you have percent change problems in the homework and in your first quiz. So the denominator is still the same. I'm comparing to the original. This is just showing you how you can calculate the change that occurred. To calculate the change, you just find the difference between the original amount and the new amount. These bars represent absolute value. So you probably learned absolute value in previous math classes. If you forgot what absolute value means, it basically just means the distance between the two numbers. What's the distance between the original and the new amount? So when you're using absolute value, basically what happens is if you end up with a negative, that negative becomes a positive. So I'll do one more example with you, and then the rest of these problems will be the problems that you'll have to work on as your assignment for session 4. So this question says, Samantha's weekly salary increased from $699 to $1,025 once she earned her bachelor's degree. What is the percent of increase in her salary to the nearest percent? So this is the original. She originally earned $699. This is her new salary. Now she earns $1,025. So I'm going to plug into the equation. Original minus new amount. Now I'm going to be taking the absolute value of these numbers. Divided by original. Remember, the original was $699. If you subtract using your calculator, 699 minus 1,025 is negative 326. So I'm going to carry over the denominator. Now I'm going to take the absolute value, because basically what happens with absolute value is I really just want to know the distance between the two numbers. So this is just going to become positive, because that tells me this number is $326 away from this number. So that's the change that occurred. There was a $326 change. I'm going to compare the change to the original. So now I'm going to divide. 326 divided by 699. I'll get a long decimal. Again, I'm just going to use the first 5 digits. So 0.46638. 0.46638. Now remember, I'm looking for a percentage. That's what this part of the formula is. I want to convert into percent form. That's going to require me to multiply by 100. So I'm going to multiply by 100. When you do that, you have 46.638%. Now I'm told to round to the nearest percent. So the nearest percent means I want a whole number. So I don't want this decimal portion. Since I don't want this decimal portion, this is all I want. So I have to determine if I'm going to leave this as a 6 or round it up to a 7. Because of the value that's next to it, because the value next to it is a 6, I'm going to round this up to a 7. So it's going to be 47%. And that's my answer. Now, with percent change, it's important to keep in mind whether there was a percent increase or a percent decrease. You can determine this either by looking at the wording in the problem or by looking at the numbers. Obviously, there was an increase in the numbers. And I was told that there was an increase based on the wording. So if I wanted to write a sentence explaining my answer, I can say Samantha's salary showed a 47% increase. This grew by 47% to become this number.